Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas, Jemima.
I'm so excited that I'm very thankful actually, that we get to do this podcast on Christmas Eve day.
Yes.
We didn't have a chance to. The last 10 days were insane,
Yeah.
so busy.
Yeah.
We had so many onboardings. We never had that. Normally December is more quiet, but this year it has been really surprising. But I'm also grateful because it's a perfect timing because a new season of health and fitness, it's very strong the first 3 months. So
Yeah, I would say probably 50 to 70% of profit happens in those first 3 months. Would you
yeah.
agree, as an operator and who's done this so long? Do you remember that being the case, or was it more balanced?
It's way more balanced than you think, but you get more attention, right? So it's a good time to be there as well, to make sure you have your campaign set, to make sure you have your irresistible offer, because you get more attention. There's more people who are looking into doing something, but in general it's also like a little more hype than in reality, because the people that really want to do something, they're gonna come the year round, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. But like you said, there's no better time than to set up and be ready to take advantage of just the attention that you're going to get as a fitness and wellness space.
And I'm about to say something that is going to change it for you. Because if you have some old prices and packages and some stuff that you really don't like and that wasn't really working for you last year, the best time to change something, to increase prices, if you have been in a position where you devaluated yourself last year, you always get a second chance. And the best chance you get is when the years are changing, because that's very normal that, with the new year's, the government does it, right? They always increase the tax with or apply new laws. And so if you have been in a position where you're like, man, I really did a mistake there, the offer that I had out there was too low, this is your chance to work with your existing customers and change something up, because the acceptance of that will be better than, let's say, you do it just in the middle of the year. So take advantage of first of January to, make the changes that are necessary and the changes that you want to do.
So I have a big question for you, actually.
Uh-oh.
And it's something, since we are starting the new year, and recently we've gotten a client that's launching their first studio. If you had to do it again, how would you start this new year fresh in a wellness EMS facing place? Like, how would you launch your new studio?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would be very particular in who I want to serve. I would make sure that my copy is on point, that I'm really focusing on that pain point that that person has, that I know how the questions to go really deep and understanding the emotional drive that these very specific audience have. And then I would have a kick-ass offer. I would make sure I have an offer that has so much value, but that not only just value, but specific value to solve that problem of that audience. I would solve problems of an audience that definitely has the financial capabilities. You know how they say, like, solve rich people's problems. That's what I would definitely do, because I wouldn't want to try to convince people that, that don't have the capability, but also who don't see the value in it in general to take care of themselves and their health. So I would make sure I target like really premium and try to address premium people. And then I think the perfect offer is one of the cornerstones of a very functioning location. And I would make sure I have my systems all set up. I have, the perfect automations. I have an AI agent set up. I have very well-trained staff around me and people. And I know my terms, I know my boundaries, I know my terms, I know my self-worth, right? Understanding like what we got to offer. And yeah, I do think that is the most important things. There's a couple of very specific measures, or in terms of like concepts, that I do believe works. For example, I would never go one-on-one again. I would definitely be in a semi-private. I would promote a semi-private concept. I would definitely not really offer 1 times a week things. I would have an accountability group. I would definitely make sure that I do a lot for the community.
Ooh, that's something I want to get into later.
Right? I could go on and on, but I
Yeah.
think this is the framework and the concept that I know would succeed for sure.
So, in terms of, because a lot of VMS studios still have packages, 3 packs, 10 packs, 24 packs,
Four
and
packs.
exactly. You know that better than anyone. Would you start with those and still have those?
Not officially,
Okay.
definitely not. No, I would have probably a transformation starter,
Okay.
which would have a minimum time of 6 weeks.
Okay.
And then I would have a membership, and I would only offer, there must be a good reason why I would allow someone to get a smaller package. It would really be an exception. If I see that someone is my dream customer, but let's say I'm here next week and then I travel for 2 weeks and I come back, or someone that really gives me a reason. But then the problem is it's not really scalable. And I'm also learning that, giving exceptions, and then the problem is it doesn't stay with an exception, and how do you communicate that to your team? So if you are in the role of you running the show and you're inside the operation, you can do that. But I think what we want to do is setting up like concept that, are profitable, even the investors and the owners are not in their operations. And then you kind of have to refrain from these exceptions, and you need to be very strict and be like, you get started with the 6 weeks, and then after a month you have the opportunity to continue with our membership. I would maybe even do something like you have to qualify for it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
like you got to qualify actually to become a member long term with us.
I love that because so much of boutique high end studios are turning into like a club, a second or third space where people are hanging out.
Yeah.
And in an industry where we also kind of pride ourselves on being the most efficient workouts in the world, I think it's so important to one, have that semi private group. So those groups of people that you're training with, that you're getting to know. And then something that you mentioned, like community. So many of the studios that we work with, that we interact with, don't have that community piece. What would that look like? And I know that it's probably more aligned with each individual person and again, the avatar that you're focusing on. But you as an individual, what would you center your community?
The first thing is you have to be consistent with the events that you're doing, and it needs to be sustainable for yourself, right? Because if you announce, let's say you do something for the community on a weekly basis, I do think that's very hard to keep up. But I think whatever you decide, if you decide to do it once a month or you decide to do it quarterly, you got to be consistent with that. And you cannot be discouraged if people don't show up the first time you do it as you want them. And even if just a handful show up the first time, like you got to keep going and you got to be consistent with that. But I do think you need to have events consistently. You got to be thinking about what is it that is really of interest for my audience. What would they love to do? Sometimes that can be something that promotes their health, but sometimes maybe it's also something that pampers them, and just maybe you just throw a freaking party and have everyone just network and have a good time and hire like a really great DJ, and have some maybe non-alcoholic cocktails. And you can ask your current customers what would they love to do. But I think the bonding, the networking, that's what really, like, it's like a glue. And then people will be like, oh, let me invite actually my best friend to it.
Would you exclude non-members from these communities?
Yeah, I would.
Wow. Okay.
Because there needs to be something that members get that non-members don't get. Because if you give package holders the same thing that VIP members get, what's the point in becoming a member? They need to get a little extra pampering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. So one question that keeps coming up with some of our different studios that we work with is some of the creativity or options on training with EMS, like do's and don'ts. So what are some of the exercises or types of training that are absolute no-nos for EMS, and what are the ones that you would say are best suited for doing group training?
Yeah, so that's a brilliant question. Thank you. when it comes to your EMS training classes, it's important that your coaches leave their coach crazy ego at the door step. So if you have someone that is very enthusiastic in their private training life or even previous life, let's say CrossFit, don't do CrossFit moves with 50-year-olds in a group setting. Don't let them do burpees. Come on, guys. Like sometimes I feel trainers want to impress, especially prospects in the first session with, let us do something really like hard and crazy and let us challenge them, right? That can go really wrong because first of all, if someone comes to you who's not training 3-4 times a week and comes to you because they want to start a healthier life and they want to start training, and you let them do burpees with EMS, their knees are gonna hurt. And they feel they won't be able to do that. So you never want to conduct a session, and that's the rule. You never want to conduct a session that the person feels it's too much for them. Yes, of course, we as coaches, we as personal trainers, we want to motivate them to go a little further than they would go by themselves, of course. But if we think we impress someone by overwhelming them with stuff that they feel like they're going to fail, and on top of that, they're literally going to be in pain the next 2-3 days, you did something super wrong. Don't do that, okay? Start slow. Start and make a movement assessment. I mean, that's the first thing they teach you when you do your personal trainer certification. They teach you how to assess someone's movement patterns, right? So you got to first check where they at, right? And some trainers, they simply don't do that. They just throw these insane exercises at people. They are not able to do the full range of motion, and they put too much pressure on their joints, and they're leaving not having gained anything, but they're in pain, and they have, worst case scenario, take some painkillers, and they're feeling really uncomfortable the next couple of days. So start by really observing and doing a movement assessment, obviously a way shorter one. You don't have 20 minutes to do a full like movement assessment with a customer, but what you can do is check the basics. Yeah? See how, for example, when you take a squat, how they can bend without losing form. The moment you see they lose form, don't do it. And there's another rule. You should never go into dynamics when they can't do the range of motion like slow, like don't go fast where they are not capable of doing it. So if you see someone struggles with doing a normal lunge, if you're seeing someone struggling doing a normal squat, then please don't go into a HIIT workout, and do it crazy.
So then what are some of the best trainings that align with EMS? Obviously, the number one rule and what should always be followed is form
follows function.
Exactly. You always say that. But let's say the trainer knows where they're at. What are some of the best ways to get inspiration, to combine, to use, and that you feel aligns with EMS the best?
I think every trainer first needs to learn how to guide an exercise. So how to act and spot every exercise that they're doing. It's pretty basic. It's like, when you're a really good trainer in EMS, you need to be strong verbally. You need to be able to explain the exercise very specific, what the different body parts, where they at, are they bent, are they like where they are, how you stand, which position. Then you need to have visually, you need to showcase this. You need to be in a position where your customers can see you. So, kind of like in front of them, maybe a little bit to the side. Doesn't need to be in front of them, but enough space. You don't want your prospect to smell your breath.
No, but you'd be surprised. I'm sure there's
yes.
people
you don't want to know, you don't want to breathe and know what your personal trainer ate 2 hours before, right? But yeah, definitely showcasing the exercise. Then you also need to give hands-on techniques. You can give manual resistance. I mean, there's a ton of different variation, but these are very basic that you need to be really good at. And I think the acting and spotting, the acting is of being very encouraging and just don't stop to, communicate while exercising. And I'm not talking about gossip, but I'm talking about hey, that position that you have right here is perfect. go an inch deeper, like that little extra tiny push. But yeah, no burpees, for example. But yeah, so acting and spotting, verbal communication, showing it, like modeling it for them, showing them how the exercise is conducted correctly, and then hands on a manual resistance, putting them into form, like make sure their shoulders are back and they're breathing correct as well.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
And in EMS, one more thing, what's very important is the tension. The electromuscle stimulation is going to involuntarily contract your muscle groups, but it's even way more efficient if the person itself contract their muscles on top of that. So they're tight, tense, they're squeezed, but they're not holding their breath.
Okay. So now pivoting to a different non-technical place of communication, I know you wanted to talk a little bit more about vision for people, our clients, our audience that's listening. What is some of that vision that they should carry over, or that we hope to carry over to the new year?
Yeah, and I want to, I had a very emotional call yesterday with, long-term customer of ours, beautiful person. And, sometimes when I'm coaching business owners, it's so I see where they get stuck. I see where their bottleneck is. But even sometimes when they're aware, when you are aware of it, you can't help yourself out there. Why? Because the fear of change is holding you stuck, right? You're scared of. And a very common thing what entrepreneurs are scared of is growth. They want the success, but in order to succeed, you got to grow. And then grow is such a scary thing, because in this setting, for example, growing has a lot to do, for example, with hiring people. And we go through that, right? You may have to make decisions where you bring someone new on. And that is a big responsibility, because you have to pay salary, right? And obviously you have to make that revenue in order to pay it. And sometimes in small businesses, like most of our customers are small business owners, it's a big thing, because some of them, they just started their business, they weren't even able to pay themselves salaries yet. And now the thought of, how do I pay someone else, right? Yes, I could cover my expenses. Yes, I could also buy more equipment. Getting someone else on board is a huge step for them. The thing is, when you don't do that, you don't really grow as an entrepreneur, because you're in operations and you're stuck. And fulfillment, if you fulfill, you have not the time that you need in order to make more sales, make more revenue, onboard more people. So it's a very challenging thing. And, I was literally thinking about it last night, because that conversation, sometimes I want so much to take that fear away of people and be like, hey, you're going to be so much better once you are doing that step, because you're going to realize that it's so worth it. It's going to be fine. I always want to say you're going to be fine, but they don't feel it yet, right? And I was just thinking last night, like, okay, if we can't feel it yet, if we're still scared about the next move, but in all my career, for example, where we are today, right? As an example, it starts with a vision. It always starts with a vision. I remember how we started, guys. We started with like nothing. I mean, I had my deep, deep know-how about, I've opened studios, I've run studios, multiples, right? And I've been in different countries, and I've done good things and I've done mistakes, but that's what I got. But to do this journey was to learn so many new things. And I remember all the emotions too, the fear, the doubt, all that. But it's, the reason why we're sitting here today is there is a vision, and there is something inside of you, maybe not 100%, but some part of you believes that it could actually come true. And I think that's what we just need. We need a vision in the beginning. In the beginning, it's something that you can envision, right? And so I wanted to bring it up, because in this particular example yesterday, if that customer can just envision himself, not anymore doing 100% of all trainings himself, if he can just envision himself using that space, particular time that gets freed up because now someone else does the training fulfillment for him, what are you able to do with that? And what's the vision? Like, if you can see yourself really, because of that, being able to onboard more customers, then you're going to be able to make so much more revenue than what you're doing now. And the amount of money that you're going to spend on the person that fulfills normally is going to be like 10%. That's my experience. That's normally what happens. And that's very encouraging, So I want to ask you today, what is the vision that you have that maybe you're too afraid yet to have that dream, to have that thought, to have that idea, but don't think about if you're ready for it or how you're going to do it. I just want you to take a moment and envision yourself next year or in your next step. How would that look like? Who would you be? What would your day look like? How would your hours change? And how would that feel? Because one thing is so for sure, when you can see it and you can believe it, it's going to happen. And I've had so many situations like this. I remember my first EMS studio, and I'm holding my book, you guys. If you haven't had yet the chance to read it, go read it. I'm not saying that. I really don't want to sell this book. It's not about selling it. I was actually even thinking to do kind of a promo for the new year. And we're going to let you know so that you're going to see it when you click on the link. But this book starts really with my story, right? The story of, becoming an entrepreneur, becoming a studio owner. And I remember that I had the vision, and the first studio was located in a place that used to be like a copy shop, right? Like very old fashioned, like big machines. And that little location was a mess. It was a mess. It was dirty. I remember the small room that I envisioned as the not the sauna, the showers and the changing rooms. It was like cluttered with stuff. And I took one of my friends there when I was about to sign the lease. And I remember she said to me, what you plan to do here? There's going to be an EMS studio? She was not convinced.
She couldn't see it.
No, but she was like, can you actually give me your B license? Like there were trainer books, because my mom wants to study. So she just wanted something for herself. But she was like, I basically stopped talking to her after that, because I was like, man, this is really not a friend here. But I was so like, I saw it. I remember thinking the walls, I want them in green. My first brand was all about this apple green vibe, and I could see it. She couldn't. And then I had another friend, and, he's into taxes, and he's like, knows a lot about businesses. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to do this. And he's just like, what? People would pay for it? I doubt it. But I saw it. I saw the studio ready, and the studio became even more beautiful that I envisioned it in my dream. And it was a success. It was a success because I had over 150 members. I was profitable. I had enough money to take out. I grew a team. I could pay myself a salary, and I expanded. I wish I would have stayed there longer before I would have made the next moves, and I wanted more and more and more, but that's a story for another day.
Well, and that's how you help our clients today.
Exactly. But yeah, like when you have that vision and you love about dreaming about this vision, it's a very healthy thing to do for your mind. And the more you like the idea, you also cannot be so shaken by other people's opinions. Just one tip: don't take it personally, because they have their own perception and they are in their own world. So just don't take it personally if people don't see your vision. But what's important is that you can see that vision.
And I also think it's important to, like you said, they're no longer your friends anymore. Cutting people out that don't encourage and empower you. I think it's so important. We're reading that book, that
Approval Addiction.
The Silent Killer of Success.
The Silent Killer of Success. I think I want to bring this book and we do another episode of it, but it's a great book for you guys as well. But first read this one.
Yeah, of course.
But that's another really good book.
Well, I think it plays into what you just said, where it's so important to say no to these people, even though your approval, you're feeling bad, you want to just keep maybe these people around, but they're really holding you back.
Yeah, for sure. But I think it was a pastor that I heard him say, he said, the bigger the vision, the bigger the opposition. So it's part of it, like it's almost like the universe is testing you if you're really serious about your dream, if you own it, And that's because if you own your dream, if you own your vision, if you know your why, no one can change your mind. It's upsetting, or like I would more say it's disappointing, especially from people that you feel close to when they can see that vision. But it challenges you to even have more like faith in it and more belief and work on that and be like, how much do I want it really? And for me, I wanted it so much. Like for me, there was nothing else that at this point in my life I wanted to do. And even today, there's nothing else. Sometimes I think about our journey my journey, but I cannot imagine myself being in a different industry. And there's so much we still have to figure it out, but I still have this vision. And I just know that, for example, there's this one picture that I always see. And that is one day that people gonna ask us what it is like when no one knew about it yet. And when that wasn't really like a very common business, and when it was still challenging because we still try to figure out how we can make these concepts profitable and actually scalable. How was it back then? I see that. And that means that at some point we're going to arrive where people have figured it out and the market is going to be really educated finally. And we overcame that long period of, that phase where we had something to offer that we thought is so amazing, but people would just not know about it. Because I know that's some of the big struggles that that are running these studios are dealing with, because we have something we think, man, this is amazing. And we love talking about it, but we struggle with our business because people don't know about it. So we have to do the education part about it. And it's harder than we think. It's not that they are that people are like, really? Okay, sign me up. No, it's not like this. It requires so much steps to get people committed to this, and it takes a lot of effort.
And I think that also goes into just one question that I think keeps coming up with a lot of our clients. And I bring it up because I feel like there's so much rejection to it, which is that in order to have a transformation or the fastest transformation possible, you need accountability. You need the awesome EMS exercises more than once a week, and you need nutrition. And that nutrition piece keeps being a stumbling stone, a roadblock for so many studios because they have the fear of, I'm not a nutritionist, or they're just like, oh, that's so much work, and they're not going to do what I tell them to do. But that's going to be the differentiator. And that's going to give you the social proof to put it on the wall every time they sit down for a new client, that they're going to see, oh my goodness, this person lost 22 pounds. This person lost 40 pounds. I mean, you know it, where you've had multiple people lose hundreds of pounds, but it had to have a full circle transformation. They couldn't just keep being their old selves.
No, absolutely.
So for someone who's listening and is just like on the fence, like, oh, that's going to be so much work. It's going to be annoying. Can I just do the session, the exercise, and just have them go? What would you tell them?
I would ask them, what is the vision that you have in terms of case studies that you want to put on the wall? What are the case studies that you want to put on your social media? And what do you have to do in order to get these case studies? What do you have to do in order to get them to have real results? Because that's what we ask ourselves every day. What do we have to do that our customers get better results? We ask ourselves that every single day. And we are so challenged, not by the ones that get it. We are so challenged by the ones that, want to blame outside circumstances, that have a hard time looking at themselves, that think they do everything already right. We're challenged by these people, but it's good for us. It's healthy because we want to get better. So we're asking ourselves like, okay, what do we need to do? And when you think about the service that we provide today, that came from wanting to do more for them, to get them to have results faster and sustainable. But I have a question for you. What is the vision for you? You have been kind of growing into this industry. Now you are in January, officially February, but you're going to be 2 years working with all these customers in that space. And I think it's time to ask, what do you see with our industry? What's your vision?
I mean, I really want to help our clients have access to the best resources and the shortest path to get them profitable and to help them achieve their dream, and give us case studies because we see it happening for the ones that take the actions, for the ones that, but I think it's so, like you said, we really need to market and post more and get better in order to get the message out that there is a better way, that they don't have to get stuck, that there doesn't have to be a franchise completely built on a broken system, but that we can have the clarity and the honesty to say like, hey, this is the business, these are the steps, and just follow this and you're going to get there. And for those who want that extra help, we're here to do.
What's your vision for these EMS studios and wellness clinics?
I mean, I think it's combining so much, right? Where health is really exercise first and fitness first, and being that resource in their community for optimal long-term transformational health. And in each of those communities that they serve, that they are the center of that, and that they can pride themselves in that, and that they can grow with that.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Well, thank you guys for listening. That was your Christmas
Happy holidays.
Podcast episode. We're very grateful for you, wherever you are.
Like and subscribe.
Yes, take a break, enjoy the time with your family, eat some good food, and just know that the best is yet to come, that when you don't give up, you're gonna make it. And I'm gonna steal that from Alex Hormozy, but if you're gonna blame others, you're gonna feel better. But if you blame yourself, you're gonna get better. And just stay in here and get better with us. Bye bye.
Take care.